Today I am making a tier list for the 3-star light and dark selection ticket. If you haven't used it yet, hopefully this helps you out on what you should pick or what you can pick in general and what you should focus on. If you are unsure of which unit to pick, I'll try to explain all of the units I picked here and why they might be decent. I only made a selection of was like 10 or 11 units that I find to be useful from the tickets, and I didn't even bother including the ones that you shouldn't pick in my opinion. So yeah, of course the last one I have is not a unit, but it's called a skill up. So essentially what I mean by that is instead of picking a unit that you do not own, picking a skill up for further awakening of the unit. So essentially, if you already have a Dark Harpy, for example, if you picked the Harpy again, you would be getting 20 pieces, and this would allow you to awaken her to level 10 as well as to level 11, since the level 11 upgrade does not require any, what should I say, monster pieces. So yeah, jumping right into it, I'll try to both look into their skills through the monster book and explain my thoughts on them. So I'll start with light units for now. So first of all, the Dark Frankenstein. Uh, I've looked into his skills and he does seem like a decent damage dealer based on defensive abilities. What I really like about him and what I even like turned him over the edge to put him on the tier list at all is the extremely low mana cost for his skills. If you put him in a second or third slot, his cooldowns will be 12 seconds, so that's also pretty decent. But in my opinion, if you need that quick damage, you can always substitute it and use his abilities pretty much like 5 times instantly. So there's a lot of potential in that. I'm not gonna read first skill since it's based on attack and doesn't really fit his kit. But the second skill is deals damage based on its max HP to nearby enemies by jumping high and slamming the ground. This means that the ability, first of all, it scales with max HP, so it's great to have a tanky unit doing damage. Second of all, it's an AoE ability, so that just puts way more value on the skill itself. And you can actually build him based on the ability you prefer to use. So for example, the second ability will do AoE max HP damage, whereas the third one will do damage based on defense, and it will be hitting a lot based on that. So you can go either for a more HP focused build, a more defense focused build, or you can just build him overall tanky and put him in the second or third slot as a decent damage dealer and just chip away at the enemy's HP like that. So the third skill is throws alternate punches to deal damage based on his defense to the enemy attack target 2 times. Deals bonus damage if per hit if the target has harmful effects. And in most cases you will have harmful effects like a defense break or something like that. So in total that's 2 hits, like 306, so over 600% just on defense. There's also a decent attack scaling, and you get additional almost 200% based on defense here. So the damage is definitely not something to look over, and the fact that he's a tanky unit will just make it that much more safe. Of course, in most cases you're not looking at this unit for PvE scenarios most likely, and it's more of a situational PvP unit in my opinion. So just because it's quite situational, I did include him in the tier list, but I'll give him, I would say it's between a C and a D. I'll put him in D now, since the other units I'm looking at have sometimes even more support for the whole team, not just pure damage. But yeah, in my opinion, he's not too great, but he deserves a spot here if you decide to use your L&D tickets. So yeah, jumping on to the Light Garuda. This one, if you've read your skills or if you've built Konamiya, is a no-brainer that this is essentially a second amazing unit like Economia, and in a lot of cases actually a better unit than Economia. First of all, the first skill I'm not reading is just regular damage, but that does not matter for Tion. This is the second skill that is the most important on both Economia. So of course, just like with Kona, it decreases your skill cooldowns for both your monsters and your summoner by 35%. So he's an amazing unit in your Soul Link slot. And if you're not sure what Soul Link, that means this first slot where the abilities cost mana rather than skills, rather than skill cooldowns instead. So yeah. The Garuda itself, amazing unit. The third skill, this is a little different from the water one, as the water one, it does, I believe, similar healing percentage, so 37.8% of his max HP. However, the water one, if your team members have electric shock, it removes the electric shock effect and gives you mana regen to your summoner. However, the problem with that is in a lot, and I mean a lot of cases, you simply do not have the electric shock to remove. I believe I know only like 1 or 2 dungeons that do the electric shock, so one of them being the expedition, so the light directly in both of these. I forgot the other one, but I believe one other dungeon had the electric shock. However, that's really situational. In my opinion, the light one usually outshines the water economy. And yeah, the third skill spreads its wings to recover HP on nearby allies and revives a dead team monster. Decreases the cooldown of the skill if there are no team members alive. So yeah, an amazing skill here, just because it also gives you that safety net of reviving a dead unit. This could be very useful, especially if you are running 1 or 2 damage dealers together with your team. Of course, for most dungeons, you will need to cooperate with other team members if you are planning to run 2 damage dealers together with Tion. Without like an attack buffer like Shannon or Bastet, but you are able to do that and you bring 2 damage dealers together with Tion. It just gives you that amazing safety net where if one of your damage dealers accidentally dies, you are just able to bring him back up. And if all of them are alive, you actually decrease their cooldown by 20%. This does not matter if the unit is in a Soul Ring slot, since you do not have cooldowns when you use abilities on mana, but if you decide to put him in one of the other 2 slots, the cooldown will also be decreased, and that is, I believe, 24 seconds. So if you decrease 20%, that's another like 4 to 5 seconds off. So yeah, this unit, I think it's not a surprise, but from the current selection that we have of LD units, he goes straight to S. Okay, now the Light Harpy. Let me find her. Yeah, so the Light Harpy. This unit, I found that the abilities she provides may not be the best. However, every unit that buffs their whole team I find very useful, as first of all, there are not a lot of them in the game in itself. And second of all, if you provide AoE buffs, in my opinion, that is a great buff to the team, regardless of what you are fighting, since a lot of the buffs in the game actually are really useful regardless of the boss's powers and usually bring a lot of utility into them. So first of all, first skill, as always, nothing special, so we don't remove that. The second skill is not too important, as it uses its ferocious claws to attack the enemy target and activates Link skill 2 additional times. So first of all, this unit you are not looking to bring into the Soul Link slot, since this is more of a second or third slot unit. Her second skill has a really low cooldown and does a little bit of damage, but I doubt that you will be killing her on really a high damage build unless you are planning to really min-max that damage, and in that case you can build her sort of a either damage or hybrid damage with a little bit of tankiness, just so she can continue providing the buff. And yeah, jumping to the third skill, this is why I said that she should be put not in the Soul Link slot, but rather in the other two. So applies attack speed up and crit resistance up to nearby allies. So first of all, her cooldown is 18 seconds and the buffs are lasting for 20 seconds. That means if you put her in any of the other two slots, she will be able to permanently keep these buffs up. And just for reference, the buff she gives is 20% attack speed increase and 30% less chance for enemies to land crit hits on you. So the first thing I'm already looking at is attack speed up. It's amazing with the new unit that we just had, and it is this Karambit guy or the Fire Raven. You can first of all summon him from here if you need additional skill ups. If you do not know this, you can actually get him from free from the story. The quests themselves are really not that hard, so you have no trouble completing them, although I'm not sure at which stage they do unlock. So you might need to complete a little bit of story to reach them in the first place. But yeah, once you have him, uh, he will be an amazing combo with this. Let me just check the awaken form. Yeah, uh, with this unit and the critical resistance up, it's pretty much useful for all bosses in my opinion, since critical hits are quite deadly on a lot of them, and if you just are able to minimize the amount of crits that you get, it will always be beneficial for you. But just because the buffs are quite situational and her second skill is not too great, I'm gonna be putting her in C tier. I may be switching her to B based on the other entries here, but we'll see in the end. Maybe I'll switch around some of them. Okay, and the next unit we're looking at is the Dark, or rather the Light Grim Reaper. So let's just jump into his overview. So Prom, basically. No one invited me to that one, but hopefully the unit brings some better news here. Yeah, basically the sec or rather the basic skill actually has some use compared to a lot of units. So it swings the size to attack the enemy target, applies attack speed up to itself with a certain chance if the target is stunned. It's pretty situational. However, if he does use his skills and lands the stun, which he can do from his third skill, this one will actually stack up quite a bit, and when you hit it once, he'll get more attack speed, he'll start hitting even faster, he'll get even more attack speed, and there's a really high chance that he'll be able to stack to a lot of attack speed. Uh, that will depend on the build you do. However, that attack speed combined with the rest of his skills actually has potential for him to be a decent damage dealer. So the second skill swings the sickle of death to attack enemies within the area, applies death down if the target is stunned. So yeah, this means that you will need to combo it with a third skill or another unit that does stun, or it shouldn't be a problem. And the other thing I like is that it only is a 14-second cooldown and max skills. This unit I am looking at placing into the, well, one of the other two slots that are not soul linked, just because using him with mana will cause issues with mana sustain, first of all. So if you want to use him with mana, you will need to launch the third skill first. Based on that, first of all, you are losing a valuable soul link slot in your team, which in my opinion should be usually reserved for either your buffer, your healer, or stuff like Konamiya and Tion. Second of all, his cooldowns being this low will allow him to cycle that stun way more often and do not rely on your combos. Since, for example, to make the best use of these two abilities, you would need to land them very shortly, one after another. So since the stun only lasts 3 seconds, you will need to land this, and you will need to follow it up quickly with this. This means you will need to use 5 mana instantly, and without having 5 mana, you will have trouble using those crucial abilities that you may need to for sustain. So yeah, he will be a situational unit. However, he's a very good CC unit in my opinion. The fact that he can also bring defense down makes him a super great support unit, and the first skill being able to stack attack speed up, I believe it has potential since it's a 100% chance. So whenever the target is stunned, you will be stacking this. So if you are able to cycle his skills a lot, so for example, if you can pair him up with a Soul Linked Konami or Tion and just keep resetting those skills, you are potentially looking at a really long-lasting stun as well as defense break on your enemies, and him having around maybe actually even 10 levels of attack speed up, just because if you are able to stun the enemy for like 5 to 6 seconds, and you can get around 200%, well, not 200%, but 200 attack speed or somewhere there, uh, him increasing the attack speed by 20% and then 10% additional one for each level, he will be able to smash like 3 or 4 times every second. So in my opinion, I'm gonna put him at a B. It's definitely above the Harpy. However, him being a sort of a AoE damage unit rather than a buffer might be putting him away from an A. And yeah, now going on to the light imp, this one will be pretty quick as he's only good for one thing pretty much. So first of all, first skill, nothing special. Second skill, pierces the enemy target with the divine spear to attack and applies stun with a certain chance. It does have a decent chance to stun, so 70% stun for 3.5 seconds. The good thing about him is he's mostly a damage dealer, so his second skill does deal over 800% scaling attack damage. So that is a decent multiplier, especially for both the cooldown and the costs that it has. And this is where he shines. So the third skill, also on a 18-second cooldown and 3 mana cost, so quickly pierces the enemy with the spear 3 times, dealing damage that penetrates the enemy defense. So it penetrates 50% of the defense, which is a little bit more than the Fire Raven's basic attack, but or rather defense penetration is an amazing skill for a lot of PvP scenarios, as well as some bosses that have like defense buffs and stuff like that. Of course, he's very situational, so I'm not going to put him very high as he's only pretty much useful for the third skill. And I think I'm gonna put him at around a C, definitely below the Harpy, as I feel like the Harpy's buffs are a little bit more important, as well as her second skill having a very similar multiplier to his second skill. So just comparing third skills, in my opinion, Harpy is a little bit better. Yeah, so now going over to the Light Mummy. So her skills are first skill, same thing, second skill, body roll, so rolls into a ball and collides with the enemy target to deal damage based on its max HP and provokes with a certain chance. So first of all, look at these cooldowns as well as cost. 12-second cooldown with a 2 mana cost. And look at the chance to provoke. First of all, huge multiplier, same as the Light Imp second skill. The most important though, 90% chance to provoke for 14 seconds, and the skill is on 12-second cooldown. This means that you are looking at a potentially permanent provoke on your enemies. As long as you build some accuracy on him, you will most likely be able to CC him permanently. And now going to the third skill, this is, I mean, with the second skill alone, in my opinion, he would be an amazing unit already. But look at what he has here. So splits the soul to recover its HP and revive a team member. After reviving a team member, recovers the revived target's HP. So he's not a healer. However, he also has that safety net to bring any unit back. And a great combo between his second skill is, since he will be provoking enemies, a lot of enemies will be essentially hitting him a lot of time, and he'll of course be losing a lot of HP. And the second, or rather the third skill, if he does revive an enemy member, he will be healing for 23% of his HP. So you are able to sustain him as well. In this case, of course, due to the cooldown being lower than the effect itself, he is definitely going into the second or third slot, not in the soul linked one, and he'll be able to permanently keep the provoke without any help from any skill cooldown decreasing units. And yeah, just based on that second skill alone, I have to put him between a B and an A. Oh, I'm actually trying to decide. He's definitely going above the Grim Reaper, that is for sure, for sure. I'm gonna put him at A, but I will review it at the end, and I might move him to high B in the slot. Okay, now jumping to a quite similar unit, so the Light Fairy. Let me find her real quick. There she is. So yeah, the first skill, same thing as always. Second skill, Ignite, so blows a small flame to attack the enemy target 2 times, and each hit has a certain chance to apply burn. So at level 7, it is a 18 second cooldown or 3 mana cost. The multiplier is pretty big as well, actually, even bigger than the Imp, so 850% total since it hits 2 times. And it has a 90% chance to apply level 1 burn for 12 seconds, 20 seconds I mean. So the second skill is nothing special apart from having decent damage, but I picked her mostly for the third skill. So Holy Call revives a dead team monster and revives an additional ally target with a certain chance. So she does have a decent chance to revive multiple units with a single skill. So potentially you are looking at her being in the Soul Link slot. So yeah, the first revive is of course guaranteed, and the chunk of HP you get after reviving is actually pretty big compared to a lot of other revivers. So in my opinion, she's definitely worth looking into it. However, there are of course better revivers in the game. Mostly of them are nat 5s, so if you do not have those, this is definitely an option. However, you shouldn't overvalue the revive itself. It is more like a clutch sort of safe option where you are having trouble beating a certain stage or beating a certain opponent. So while the revive is definitely pretty good, I'm not gonna put her too high. In my opinion, uh, she will go above the imp. However, I think the light harpy is a little bit better than the Pixie, so I'll be putting her in the middle here. And a few more units left, so now let us jump over to the Light Yeti. So he has 4 abilities, one of them is a passive. So first of all, first skill, same thing, however he does have a little bit higher damage multiplier than the rest of the units we looked at, so at 200%. So the second skill, Heavy Slash, swings the club to deal damage based on its defense to the enemy target 2 times. The scaling is definitely pretty decent. It's close to 700% defense in total. And the cooldown on the ability is pretty low itself as well. And now jumping to third skill, so Rage, strikes the floor with a fist filled with rage to deal damage based on its defense to nearby enemies and applies attack up to allies. So yes, he's a AoE buffer for attack, so we're already looking at a third option for all of those Shannon, Bastets, maybe the Fire Harpu. This is also a decent option, as first of all, he does have 2 abilities that scale with defense. That means you will be able to build him tanky and still dish out a little bit of damage, which is unfortunately not possible with stuff like Shannon and Bastet. And yeah, the buff itself is a little shorter and the cooldown is a little high. However, he does have a passive where decreases the cooldown of rage with a certain chance whenever a team member gets attacked by a skill. So there's only a 15% chance to decrease it, and it decreases by 1.5 seconds. So the thing about this is it does not count well, it does count, but you are mostly looking at it to be used for enemies that do AoE damage. So essentially, if a unit hits all of your 3 units as well as the summoner, you are potentially looking at this having a chance to activate 4 times at once. So it's mostly useful for, in my opinion, PvE scenarios where you are having a boss that constantly hits your all of your units and hits them a lot. And so, for example, the wind Terglans, or I believe it's called, he has an ability where he just shoots out poison, and it hits you a lot, but it does not hit you for a lot of damage. So it will allow you to quickly get the skill back up. However, it is also very situational, and it only being a 15% chance does worry me that it will not be too consistent, and in some cases you might get the skill back up in like 3 seconds, but in some cases you might just have to wait the full amount due to bad RNG. So I had to put him here for the attack up as well as being a tanky unit. However, I will not be putting him pretty high in the list, as he'll simply will not outperform the other 2 options that we currently have, so Shannon and Bastet. And I'll be putting him, I believe, at the bottom of C tier. And now we are jumping to the dark units. I'll leave the best for last in my opinion, and I'll start with the dark living armor. So first skill, same thing. He's just to preface this, he's a very debuff heavy unit, so he will do a lot of things that your other units will not be able to do combined in a single unit. This is the main reason why I put him here. So first of all, and his second skill smashes the hammer to the ground, dealing damage based on its defense to enemies within the area and applies crit rate down. I'm gonna disregard the damage since it's not a huge amount. I'm mostly gonna be focusing on the debuffs he provides, since that is where the value comes from. So at max skill, he gives level 1 crit rate down for 20 seconds, and the cooldown is 18 seconds. That means in the second or third slot, you are able to keep the crit rate down effect on the boss permanently, and for reference, crit rate down decreases the crit rate chance by 30%. So in some cases, if you look at it, you can actually consider this to be a solid damage reduction of around like 15 to 20% based on the enemies you are fighting. And the third skill is uses a powerful shockwave to deal damage based on its defense to the enemy target 3 times. Each hit has a certain chance to apply attack down and block beneficial effects. So this one has a little longer cooldown. That means you will have some downtime on the debuffs if you use him in the other 2 slots, unless you are using a skill cooldown decreasing unit, so like Onamiya or Tian or something like that. So he will have around 4 seconds of downtime on those debuffs. However, this is a very important thing that you might overlook, is that he does attack 3 times and there is a 75% chance to land it. That means on average, you're actually looking at debuffs that are either level 2 or level 3 in strength. So first of all, level 2 attack buff, or attack debuff rather, is actually around 54%. So combined attack buff, attack debuff, Jesus, always confusing. Attack debuff together with the crit rate down, that just basically negates a lot of damage from a lot of enemies. And together with it, there is a block beneficial effects for 20 seconds. That means you do get those beneficial effects. This cannot stack up, but this being 3 hits at 75%, it basically gets close to like 98% chance to land the debuff on a unit. And just because of that block beneficial effect, as well as both abilities being AoE, the main use I'm looking him forward to is actually stuff like TOA and other PvE goals where you have to fight a lot of enemies, and sometimes those enemies have very situational buffs that are hard to remove with other units that you might have. So I know that in TOA there are a lot of units that buff up invincibility, buff up those defense buffs, immunities and stuff like that. And this essentially having two AoE abilities that both prevent the beneficial blocks as well as pretty much cripple the damage the enemy has with both attack down and crit rate down. In my opinion, he definitely deserves a pretty high spot in the ranks. Well, compared to the Light Grim Reaper, he's definitely better in my opinion based on the debuffs. So I will be putting him in a lower A. I think the Mummy is a little bit more utility compared to him. However, they're definitely very comparable between themselves in terms of ranks. And now the last unit we have is the Dark Harpy. She's of course amazing. She's amazing for one ability, but that ability is pretty much used for, well, like every speed team clear teams that you build. So first skill, same thing as the others. Second skill, also nothing special. It simply flaps its wings to attack the enemy target 2 times and stuns the target at a certain chance if the last hit critically hits. So it does add a decent multiplier. However, that stun will be pretty hard to land, as you do need first of all to crit, and even if you crit, it's only a 70% chance. So don't try to focus on this one too much, and instead try to abuse her third skill, which is uses its ferocious claws to attack the enemy target, and each hit has a certain chance to apply death down and damage taken down. Additionally, activates the linked skill 2 times. So it is a 70% chance to land the debuffs, so both defense down and damage taken up. So based on the defense down, let's say we're counting level 1, that is a 50% decrease in defense, and that's another 30% more damage. So you're looking at a good chance to actually double your damage just by landing the skill. Another thing about the skill is that it does activate multiple times and it hits multiple times, so you have an ability to where you can actually activate both of these debuffs for like 2 or 3 levels. And another thing is, if you are holding her in the Soul Link slot, which I recommend doing for some dungeons where the landing debuff is crucial, so like the Metas raid, for example, where you have to quickly hit the arm. So what I like to do is keep Bastet, for example, in my Soul Link slot, and when I see the arm is coming back, I simply switch to the Dark Harpy. I spam her third skill like 2 or 3 times. Usually it ends up landing like a level 5 defense break and branding, just because first of all you can use it like 2-3 times, and second of all, as the ability said itself, it actually activates the link skill 2 times as well. So that's additional times that you can be hitting your enemy with those defense breaks and brandings, or damage taken ups as we call it here. And yeah, just for that alone, I will be putting her straight into the S tier. It's actually quite hard to decide which one should be higher, whether it's Theon or the Dark Harpy, since first of all their uses are very different. But in my opinion, the thing with Theon is that his main use is his second skill, and another unit also has a very similar skill, whereas the Dark Harpy is sort of unique because no other units have that easily obtainable defense break plus damage taken up, which really speeds up the runs. So I'm actually gonna be putting her higher than Theon. However, in my opinion, both of them are very comparable and very similar in strength overall. And now for skill ups. So what do I mean by skill ups? By skill ups, I mean, why did it? Yeah, I'll move here. It's not D. So skill ups, what I mean is the extra awakening levels that you can get if you already have the units in the tier list that you wanted to pick. So for example, up until level 9, you do not need any extra pieces to awaken your units. However, at level 10, 12, 14, and 15, you will be needing those pieces. So a skill up, what I mean is essentially an extra awakening level or two. So if I picked a Harpy skill up and I already had the Harpy myself, I would be looking at an awakening level 10 as well as awakening level 11, since the 11th one does not require a skill up. So you can treat the skill up option as just some extra base stats for the unit. And in my opinion, I'm gonna put it at a low A. And what this means is that all units above the skill up option, I recommend choosing first, and only if you have all four of these, I would recommend going for a skill up if you intend to skill up any of these four. If you do not want to skill up any of these four and you already have you already have all four of them and you do not want to skill them up, then you can ignore the skill up and go down further the list to the B, C, and D ranks. But if you do want to skill up any of these four units, skill up is the best option in my opinion after you have acquired all four of these at least once, whether through summons or through the ticket. Once you have those, I recommend going for a skill up for one of those, whichever one you use the most. For example, for me it would be the Dark Harpy, as I already had the Tian summon. However, I didn't build him as I already had him maxed Konamiya, and it would take me a lot of skill ups to fully max him. However, she is useful even without full of the skill ups, since her main goal is to land those debuffs, and she does not need to have that high power. So yeah, this is pretty much the final list from my side, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it finds you a little useful, at least if you still have the tickets, as well as I think we are still getting some more additional tickets in the future, that's for sure, since I doubt they will make a feature that will be used once. And yeah, having all that said, thanks for watching.